So Superman star Christopher Reeves' wife stood by him after he was paralysed in a horse riding accident. That's true.
Of course it's true. Christopher Reeves' wife Dan actually stayed with her husband who was paralysed from the neck down up until his death in 2004. Right, next up. Can love survive a tragedy? It's hard enough to keep a relationship together these days without having the added trauma of an accident or a serious illness to cope with. How would you feel if your partner was suddenly paralysed, disfigured or diagnosed with a mental illness? I'm sure it's happened to some of you, and it would be really great to hear from you today. 0207 173 5555. Do you really think your relationship could survive? Would it be love that keeps you in the relationship, or would it be guilt? Well, with us this morning are Steve and Maria from Essex. Steve is paralysed from the chest down after a motorcycle accident last summer. Good morning to you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Steve and Maria. Steve, take us back to the day your accident happened. What happened?
I was on a motorcycle. I was on my way home. Unfortunately, there was a guy coming the other way. Just took a right turn into a car park and hit me head on, unfortunately. And
you still remember that day vividly, do you, Steve?
Yeah, up until the point of the accident, that's for sure, yeah. Don't remember hitting the car, which was probably quite a godsend, really.
And the impact was so forceful that you literally went flying through the air?
Yeah, I travelled about 30 yards and landed in the car park rather than on the road, which was quite fortunate. But again, very lucky. I was wearing all the right kit, which, as a motorcycle instructor, I preached that a lot, and it certainly paid off that day, that's for sure.
30 yards is one hell of a distance, Steve, isn't it? What injuries did you sustain?
I broke my back in 5 places, a couple of ribs, left wrist and right shoulder. But again, just, you know, with what could have been, I was very lucky to get away with that.
How did they tell you the news? You wake up, presumably you regain consciousness, still in hospital.
Yeah.
Who tells you the news? Is it Maria? Is it the doctors? What happens?
I knew when I came round, I knew that I'd broken my back because I couldn't feel anything. I could feel my wrist, could feel my shoulder, but couldn't feel anything else. And I just knew before they said it. I was aware that it was not good. And
you'd been in a relationship with Maria for what up to that stage? Some 6 months?
About that, yeah. About that. It was a short period of time.
When did you first hear about the accident, Maria?
About 3 hours after it happened. Just I hadn't heard from Steve that afternoon, and normally he'd text me every other hour, just little messages and things. And I just said to my daughter I hadn't heard from him. She said, well, give him a call. So I did, and a woman answered the phone, and I cut the phone off, and I was a bit sort of taken aback that a woman had answered the phone. She said, well, ring it again. We did, it was the hospital, and they just said, like, can you get up here as soon as possible? Because of this accident. And it was the same day as we was going to my little boy's football presentation. So I was like to and fro from the hospital to the, you know, to see him get his trophy, and before Steve was taken up to the hospital at Stanmore now.
And from that moment on, your lives together were to change fundamentally,
yeah,
weren't they?
Yeah.
How did you handle that change, Maria, when you found out that the man you love was not going to be able to walk again?
I think I switched off. Emotionally, you switch off because you know that you've got quite a long way to go. And there's a lot of things that Steve has to go through to get to a certain point where he can start helping himself, and you've got to be strong. So your emotions go by the wayside. You don't think about what's going on inside you. You're just being, you know, sort of strong for him. You know, you don't show him any sort of... I mean, I was scared, but it was just something that you have to do.
You can probably say this now because there's some time has elapsed. Were you angry at him? Because presumably you had lots of dreams and aspirations about what you both wanted to do together. Were you angry at him?
No. I was angry at the person that done it. Wasn't angry with Steve. I was angry with the fact that, you know, a man that I've met, finally, that we got on the same level, you know, and everything was really good. And it was taken away so quickly. you know, that's what you feel like, it's been taken away. But, you know, I thought even then that we were strong enough, mind-wise, definitely, to be able to rebuild and to make another life.
And at what point, Steve, did the discussion start, or did it enter your mind of whether, because then of your paralysis, you were going to stay together?
I think it was very quick, because pretty much the first person I saw when I sort of came round, if you like, was Maria. And obviously after there'd been a bit of discussion with the doctors, and I suppose the seriousness of the injury came to light. That sounds, but it sounds like I'm whinging. I'm really not. I know I'm very, very lucky. It could be so much worse. But sorry.
Did you offer Maria the opportunity to leave you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What did you say to her, Steve?
I just said to her, I know that you never signed up for this, and I couldn't ask somebody. I wouldn't expect anybody to stay and deal with that. And her reaction was pretty much, right, okay, which bit doesn't hurt? And it was like, okay, that's okay, it's not bad. So it was like, slap, get on with it. And you knew you were going to be right then. Really, that was...
Honestly, Maria, was there any of you was tempted? Was there any of you was tempted to leave Steve?
No.
Tell me why not.
Must love him. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows what real love is? You know, you grow up and you live in a dream world most of the time. But I think this, as if I didn't love him, I wouldn't be here. I really, because it is such hard work, and emotionally, and everything that you have to do. If I didn't love him, I wouldn't be here.
If this is touching you today, 0207 173 5555, and I've met this couple now for a couple of minutes, and you can just see, can't you, how close their love is, and that's brought them through these times. If something similar has happened to you, I'd really love you to pick up the phone to us today. And Simon, from what you've been through, you can relate no doubt to this, and the trauma of someone having to pick themselves up again, as Steve is, and saying, right, I'm going to get on with it no matter what.
Absolutely. I was engaged before I went to the Falklands, and afterwards she couldn't take it, and we split, you know, and I have no qualms about it. I mean, she did the right thing for her, and as it turns out, the right thing for me, because I met the girl of my dreams, and I've been married for 18 years and got 3 children. My boy celebrated his 17th birthday yesterday. So love can overcome problems, but I've got friends who've been through similar things. There was a chap that I knew in the Welsh Guards, Gary. He broke his neck, and he's still married to Julie all these years on, over 20-odd years. So it can overcome, and love is a great emotion. Love and hope are 2 of the greatest emotions we have, so it can work.
But we've got to be honest with ourselves today. It is different, isn't it? Like because presumably you've got plans when you meet that person, and you've got lots of romantic plans that maybe cannot happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, things do go wrong. That's life. And I don't think it's any different from the difficulties ordinary relationships have, in the sense that, you know, sometimes you make a choice and it wasn't the right one, and people then fall out of love. But all you've done is add an extra dimension of problem in there. And as Maria said, I mean, it's a real hard problem, because you've got to learn to deal with so many different things. But it's the time and the effort that takes. But I've seen one chap was very badly injured in Northern Ireland, and they said he'd never have children. And yet, through the wonders of medicine and science, they were able to extract sperm, and the next thing you know, he was able to have twins, and he's still married. So it does work out sometimes. And I saw one chap who was badly spine injury, and he walked out of the hospital having been told he'd never walk again. So things do change and things do happen, you know, and if you're lucky, it can work.
See, I think, Steve, if something like what happened to you happened to me,